Once upon a time, in a land far away, there was a woman. She always thought about and longed for a daughter, a very tiny daughter. She thought, well, how can I get a small daughter? She went to visit a witch and asked the witch, how can I get a daughter? I want a very small girl. The witch said, well, that's easy. Simply go find some grain. That's easy. Oh, really? Well, thank you. And the woman went in search of some grain, and she found the grain, brought a seed of the grain home, and planted it. She watered it daily. Later, a sprout came up, and it had a small bud. The old woman looked at the bud and said, how beautiful, and kissed it. When she kissed the bud, it bloomed, and in the middle sat a very tiny little girl. The woman was thrilled. She took the small girl and put her in her palm. A girl! Oh, she is beautiful. I've already decided to call her Inchilena. She's only as big as an inch. I need to make a bed for Angelina. She took a walnut and cracked it in half and made the half shell Angelina's cradle, took a rose petal and made it her blanket. She looked for a place for her to sleep. She took a bowl of water, filled it, placed a garland of flowers around it, and put Angelina in the middle. And she floated. It was very similar to a large lake for Angelina. The girl slept as she floated on the lake. The old woman went into the back and went to sleep. Now in the house, there was a cracked, broken window. And one day, a brown frog, ribbit, ribbit, jumped out of the pond and entered the house. The girl was sleeping on the lake, and the frog said, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. A beautiful ribbit girl, ribbit. She envisioned the little girl marrying her son. Yes, and she snatched Angelina and hopped away, went into the water. When she arrived at her home, her son was sitting there. Ribbit. He looked at the girl. Ribbit. The mother said, ribbit. The boy looked and said, ribbit, ribbit. The mother said, shh, shh, shh. You'll wake her. Be quiet. The son said, ribbit, ribbit. The mother began planning their marriage. They had to go deep into the pond and build a mud house. They would fill it with furniture, with a bed and other accessories. She must have that. The son said, okay, ribbit, ribbit, and he hopped away in search of a bed and other furniture. He came back with the furniture and they decorated the house. Meanwhile, the mother sat there looking at Angelina. Ribbit. She began to think, how can I keep the girl from running away? She thought of a lily pad. She decided to put Angelina on a lily pad so she would float in the water. It would almost be like she was on an island surrounded by water. She couldn't escape. She would float in the water. The lily pad landed right next to the shore, but it was anchored to the mud floor by a root. The girl, the next morning, when she awoke, looked for her mother. Where is my mother? And she began to cry. And cry. Fish swimming in the pond leapt in and out of the water, but they heard someone crying. They decided to peep over the water. It's a girl, and she's crying. Oh, The fish tried to decide what to do. We'll help her. How shall we help her? That root that has anchored her to the floor we will chew away. And she was released. The lily pad floated freely on the water, and Angelina said, thank you, I'm saved. I feel so much better. I didn't want to marry that frog. I'm so relieved." The lily pad floated along, but overhead there was a bug flying over Angelina's head. He snatched Angelina up off the lily pad, and she was trying to get away. The fish saw Angelina and were so sad. The bug flew away with Angelina and landed in a tree. He told Angelina, "I'm going to marry you." The girl said, "No." "Yes, I'm going to marry you." The other bugs came to the tree and looked Angelina over. She was a girl. She had 2 legs. 2 other bugs, female bugs, were jealous. They said, "Oh, she's so ugly. She only has 2 legs. I'm so much better. I have 6. She only has 2. How ugly." Really, Angelina was beautiful, but they were insulting her. The girl cried. The man bug looked around and believed the ladybug saying that she was ugly. He decided he didn't want to marry her and picked Angelina up and dropped her out of the sky. She landed on a yellow flower and started to cry. But in the sky there was a butterfly, a white butterfly, floating in the air. The girl cried, but she noticed the butterfly, and the butterfly noticed her. Beautiful. They began to talk and have a discussion, and he fell immediately in love with her. What would he do? He decided to take a flower and place it in the pond. The girl would stand on the flower, and she untied the silk rope around her waist and tied it to the leaf, and then tied the other end to the butterfly. As the butterfly flew in the air, Angelina on the flower raced down the stream. She was so excited. She was free. She was having a great time. But overhead there was a large bird flying. The girl looked and was afraid, and so was the butterfly. The bird snatched the girl off the leaf, and she tried to get away. The bird flew away with Angelina in his beak. The butterfly was stuck. He couldn't go help her because he was still tied to the leaf. The girl looked and wanted to help the butterfly too. What could she do? The bird flew away and went high into a tree and perched there. The bird said, "Well, why don't we be friends?" They began to talk, and the girl seemed to like him. They continued to talk. The bird thought, would you marry me? The girl said, No, I don't want to marry you. The bird said, "Fine, I'll give her time. She's not ready." Other birds came from other areas and flew to this tree. They came up into the tree and looked at Angelina. Who is that? That girl. Pretty girl. The girl looked at the birds, but down at the bottom of the tree there was a mouse. He looked up into the tree and saw the birds. The girl looked down and saw the mouse. The birds were frightened away. They all went away because of the mouse. They flew away. Angelina was stuck up in the tree, and by accident she fell to the ground. The mouse had already scampered into his hole. Where will I go? I'm so hungry. She began to walk and decided, there's the mouse's hole. I'm curious. I haven't had anything to eat for so long, and I'm so cold. I think I'll go down into that hole. She knocked on the door, and the mouse opened the door and said, "Yes." "Oh, may I have something to eat? I'm so hungry and tired." The mouse said, "Sure, come on in. You can stay with me. I will feed you, and you'll be very comfortable here. But my neighbor, he is so much wealthier than I am. He has so much food. Maybe you two could get married." The girl thought about the frog. "No, I don't want to get married." "Well, if you two got married, you would be comfortable and wealthy forever." The girl thought, "Well, okay." But the mole, the neighbor, couldn't see. He was blind. Oh, well, the girl didn't care. The next morning they were going to be introduced. The mouse introduced, "This is Mr. Mole." He couldn't see. The girl looked at him and said, "Well, I'll marry you, but understand you must work and prepare for our marriage." The girl thought, well, anything's better than that frog. Well, what would she do? She began to work, and she made clothes and worked and worked. One month passed, 2, 3, 4 months passed. Then it was time. Mr. Mole, he had gone off on a trip somewhere, and Angelina was lonely. She began to sing. The birds flying overhead heard her singing. He stopped up in a tree. Hello, remember me? Oh, hi! I'm going to get married." The bird said, "Married? To him? Oh, no. Would you like me to take you away with me?" "Oh, no, I don't want to. Mr. Mole, he stays under the ground. He doesn't like the sun. I don't want to stay down there with him. I love the sun and the flowers and the green grass and the rain. It's so beautiful." "Well, yes, okay, I'll go with you." The bird picked Angelina up and carried her in his beak and brought her away. He put her up in a tree in his nest. Other birds came to the nest and looked and said, "The same girl? Are you two going to get married?" The girl said, No, I'm not going to get married." The blackbird said, "Well, okay, I have someone I'd like for you to meet." The bird carried her away and placed her in a small flower. There was another flower next to Angelina's, and as the wind blew, the flower gently opened. Angelina's flower opened. The girl looked over and saw a man, a little man. He was glittering in the sun. His clothing was so white you could almost see through it. The man looked at her. They looked at each other, and they fell in love. In love. He asked her to marry him. The girl looked and said, "Yes." And they got married. The birds in the sky were so happy. So much better than the frog or Mr. Mole. This is a much better match. This little man really was a king. He was dressed in a purple robe and held a large staff. He took his crown and crowned his bride.